Why do brands give celebrities the creative director seat? It's not just happening, it's accelerating. Like Pharrell Williams, men's creative director at Louis Vuitton, February 2023. SZA, first artistic director at Vans, August 2025. A$AP Rocky, Ray-Ban's first ever creative director, February 2025. Jaden Smith, Christian Louboutin's first men's creative director, September 2025. 5 of the 7 celebrity creative appointments have happened between 2023 and 2025. And these aren't collaborations, to be clear. They are formal leadership positions, creative director titles, real authority. None of these people have built their careers inside of fashion. They arrive with recognition from somewhere else, music mostly, and then they stepped directly into these roles that used to go to trained designers. Not a capsule collection, not a campaign, the creative director seat. And it keeps happening across different brands, different categories, different scales. And it starts looking less like individual decisions and more like something being selected for. So what's actually changing hands here? Because there's a difference between putting someone in an ad and putting someone in charge. Now, that needs explaining, and that's exactly what we're gonna do on this episode of Collab Lab with Bimma. So what separates a celebrity collaboration from a creative director role? Well, a collaboration is a project. A creative director role is a position. Travis Scott worked with Jordan Brand. That's a collaboration. Kanye West partnered with Adidas. Powerful partnership, still not a creative director role. Pharrell, SZA, A$AP Rocky, and Jaden, they aren't partners. They were appointed. Vans never had an artistic director before SZA. Ray-Ban never had an appointed creative director before A$AP Rocky. Christian Louboutin had never named a men's creative director before Jaden Smith. These roles were either newly created or newly vacant, and the scope is completely different. Creative directors oversee collection development. They set brand identity. They direct internal teams. They coordinate with executive committees. They control campaigns, partnerships, show production, social media, retail environments. It's not a design job anymore. It's closer to managing director. Think of it this way. If collaborations borrow attention, creative directors, they own the direction. Brands are building formal roles around people whose primary qualification is that they're already famous. And it's not isolated. Luxury fashion, performance footwear, streetwear, eyewear, different products, different customers, but the same move, which means either every brand is making the same mistake or the risk is worth something. Now, given how public these appointments are and how badly they can go, that seemed worth checking, right? Because why doesn't Backlash stop celebrity creative appointments? When Pharrell was announced at Louis Vuitton in February 2023, the reaction was immediate. No formal training, no design degree. Critics questioned whether he was qualified. His first show was in June, a 50-piece orchestra, 80-member gospel choir, 1,700 guests on Pont Neuf Bridge. Same thing with Jaden Smith at Christian Louboutin. September 2025, that was the announcement. Same questions about his credentials, same public skepticism. Debut collection launched in January 2026. So Backlash doesn't stop it. And it's not just fashion critics. When SZA was named Vans' first artistic director in August 2025, observers questioned the appointment publicly. And Vans proceeded anyway. The first campaign launched the same day as the announcement. Now, every one of these appointments is faced with credibility questions. None were withdrawn. The pattern kept repeating itself, even though the risk was visible and public, which means whatever this move provides has to be worth more than what it costs. And that's not about taste, that's about function. And it makes me curious to know, what job does the modern creative director actually perform at a fashion brand? For sure, the role has expanded. It used to center on product authorship, designing collections, overseeing garment construction. Now it extends into brand collaborations, fashion show production, marketing strategies, social media direction, retail design, customer experience. The list goes on. Creative directors coordinate across commercial teams, merchandising, image, executive committees. One analysis describes it as increasingly resembling a managing director role. And the public-facing part matters more than it used to. Creative directors represent the brand at shows, in media, at events. They are the voice explaining what the brand stands for, who it's for, and where it's going. They embody direction. So when you ask what the job is, it's not really about whether someone can sketch or cut a pattern. Now, that work still happens, but it happens with trained teams inside design studios. What the creative director role does now is signal meaning, fast and externally. Design isn't the job, public meaning is. And once the role includes public representation and cultural coordination at that level, someone who already carries mass recognition solves a specific problem. The brand doesn't have to spend years building that person's credibility. The meaning is already installed. So the system isn't selecting designers anymore. It's selecting people who already carry validated cultural weight and can operate at the altitude the role now requires, which makes the time pressure the next thing to look at. Because I'm dying to know, how do these 3-year contracts shape creative director decisions at these brands? Because that's the window to deliver creative impact, commercial results, and cultural momentum. But turning around a major brand, it actually takes way longer than that. One case study notes that it usually requires more than one campaign just to shift perception. And the calendar, it keeps accelerating. 2 main collections per year minimum: fall, winter, spring, summer, plus pre-fall resort and inter-season drops, compressed schedules and constant output, and limited time to develop these ideas before they hit the market. Meanwhile, turnover is brutal. 2023, 31 creative director changes across major fashion houses. By September 2025, 9 of the 15 largest luxury brands had changed creative directors. First quarter of 2025 alone, 12 notable changes. And recent tenures are short. Sabato De Sarno at Gucci, under 2 years. Peter Harkins at Tom Ford, 2 seasons. That level of churn burns teams. Designers describe new appointments triggering redundancies, job insecurity, and unclear direction. Every pivot resets momentum before it can build, and the cost of deep change is massive. Store refits require major brand expenditure, rebranding risks losing recognition and search equity and customer trust. Big retail renovations run into the millions and can take years to pay back, all while the category is slowing. LVMH's fashion and luxury goods division posted a 3% organic decline in Q4 of 2024. And analysts flag economic uncertainty, softer demand, and brand fatigue for those reasons. So brands are cautious about committing to expensive, high-risk structural rebuilds. A candidate who already has public recognition cuts the time required to generate attention. That means immediate clarity and no internal rebuild required, because rebuilds take years. 3-year contracts, they don't, which is why the same move starts showing up in places that otherwise have nothing to do with each other. And now we can answer the next question. Why do unrelated brands choose the same creative director move? Because when I line them up, the constraints, they actually match. Louis Vuitton, luxury, fashion. Vans, streetwear, and skate footwear. Christian Louboutin, luxury, footwear. Ray-Ban, eyewear. These categories, they don't overlap. Customer bases are different, price points are different. Distribution is different, but they all depend on the continuity of core products and heritage codes. Louis Vuitton, the monogram canvas. Vans, the old school silhouette. Christian Louboutin, the red bottoms. Ray-Ban, Wayfair. Research shows that over 70% of luxury consumers consider brand history before purchasing. One industry guideline puts it plainly: play with codes, never with the DNA. They all face compressed calendars. They have high creative turnover, the need to maintain core relevance while generating cultural energy. And they're categories where overhaul carries high cost and risk. And all 4 have made the same structural move. They have installed external recognition into the creative leadership role. So it's not brand specific, it is system wide. Now the pattern shows up wherever you have the following: a need to maintain continuity, a need to generate cultural energy, short timelines, high churn, and expensive switching costs. The system has to keep moving, but it can't afford deep disruption. External recognition solves that. Brands aren't waiting a decade to build a creative leader's public profile. They're borrowing one that was already built elsewhere. It saves time, cuts costs, minimizes internal disruption. It protects revenue, and it also signals momentum. And once you see it repeating across unrelated brands under identical restraints, you're not looking at trend chasing. You're looking at a system level solution. So what problem does borrowed recognition solve now? Well, it solves speed and visibility problems under constraints without requiring deep change. Now, this is borrowed gravity. Borrowed gravity is essentially when a brand installs an external fame into a leadership role to signal momentum and also relevance without restructuring its core business altogether. A brand can create change two ways. It can build it slowly from the inside, or it can borrow it instantly from the outside. When time is tight and the system can't afford a rebuild, brands borrow cultural weight instead. Now, a celebrity creative director, it does bring recognition that was built from the outside of the brand. That recognition transfers without the brand having to author it. The person supplies external validated cultural meaning and attention that the internal system it can't generate quickly enough under the same constraints. So installing someone with high recognition creates a new chapter signal without requiring a rebuild. So the brand announces direction and it generates immediate public clarity. It maintains cultural visibility and core products, they stay protected. Expensive overhauls, they get completely avoided. They didn't rebuild, they installed recognition. So this isn't about whether the person can design anymore. The role's scope is campaigns, collaborations, shows, partnerships, and public representation. That means that the job is really about meaning and coordination. When that's the function, prior public visibility becomes structurally useful. Pietro Beccari, LVMH's CEO, called Pharrell's appointment an experiment. Now, that framing is precise. The system is testing whether borrowed recognition can do the job faster and cheaper than traditional paths. The pattern says it can. Borrowed gravity is about signaling movement, not building transformation, which is where the cost shows up. So where does the celebrity creative director strategy fail? Well, it fails when the borrowed recognition becomes a liability that the brand can't actually govern. You give up stability to gain speed. That trade-off has edges. Backlash around credibility is predictable. No formal training means critics will definitely question legitimacy. That's a known cost. But the reputational risk escalates when the person's public controversies, they become brand level problems. Now, organizational strain is internal, and designer accounts describe redundancies, insecurity, unclear vision, survivor guilt when new appointments arrive. Now, leadership churn, it burns teams, momentum breaks, and control is the structural limit. The person's identity was built independent. The brand can't fully govern it. So if they pivot publicly or exit suddenly, the brand loses that signal without a warning. So speed might buy clarity, but it might cost you control. So this stops working when the system no longer needs what it actually solves. If tenure lengthens, churn slows, the role narrows back to just product, or brands generate cultural meaning internally with equivalent speed, borrowed gravity becomes unnecessary. Until then, it holds. The system keeps borrowing because building takes too long. So why do brands give celebrities the creative director seat? Well, because the role expanded, the calendar compressed, and turnover accelerated, and deep change became too expensive. The system needed a way to maintain core continuity while generating cultural energy and also public attention under tight timelines. So borrowed gravity, it solved that. Brands didn't hand over creative control. They installed external recognition to keep the system legible and moving without rebuilding it. So this is not a celebrity takeover. It's a constrained system borrowing meaning to keep moving.